It sees you when you rise. It watches while you sleep. Across time, across cultures, across forgotten temples and corporate logos, the eye is always there. What is this symbol that haunts the edges of human history? From the Eye of Horus carved into the tombs of Egyptian pharaohs, to the blazing eye atop the pyramid on your dollar bill, to the all-seeing eye in the capstone of Masonic lore, one symbol has followed humanity like a shadow, always just out of reach, always watching. But what is it really? A divine presence? An ancient technology? Or something far more unsettling? Something that uses symbols as a mask? In this video, we go beyond superstition, beyond conspiracy. We enter the inner sanctum of symbolism itself. The eye is not just a symbol, it is a system, a mirror that watches, remembers, and silently rewrites reality itself. You are not looking at the eye is looking through you. This isn't just an exploration of ancient myths or secret societies. This is about you and the architecture of awareness that surrounds you. Why do so many cultures across time, who never met, who never traded, describe the same exact image? And why has it always been connected to divine vision, surveillance, and knowledge of the unseen? In the next few minutes, we will unveil the forgotten origins of the all-seeing eye, decode its transformation from sacred glyph to modern corporate sigil, and explore the terrifying idea that this eye may not be symbolic at all, but conscious. Welcome to Esoteric Glyph, the channel where ancient mysteries are not just discussed, they are decoded. If this awakens something deep inside you, something that's been sleeping for a long time, make sure you're subscribed, because what we reveal here, most aren't ready to see. Now, let's begin. Let's gaze into the eye and see who or what is staring back. The all-seeing eye is not just an invention of modern occultism or a conspiratorial boogeyman. It is one of the most enduring symbols in human history, etched into the sacred architecture of civilizations long vanished, yet still echoing in today's digital empires. Let's begin in ancient Egypt. Here, it was called the Eye of Ra, or later, the Eye of Horus, a symbol of protection, royal power, and divine insight. But it wasn't just an eye, it was a presence. Horus, the falcon god, lost his eye in a battle against Set, the god of chaos. The restored eye became a metaphor for wholeness and spiritual restoration. This wasn't myth, it was technology of the psyche. The eye was believed to connect the soul to a higher state of order. Egyptian initiates didn't worship it, they became it. In temples, priests underwent rituals to awaken what they called the inner eye, a visionary state that allowed them to perceive the divine architecture of reality. But Egypt was only one expression of an older, deeper archetype. In India, the Ajna chakra, known as the third eye, sits at the center of the forehead, symbolizing spiritual intuition and inner vision. In Sumer, the god Enki was described as he who sees all, with eyes that pierce dimensions. Across Mesoamerica, the eye appears again, in obsidian mirrors used for divination. The Aztecs believed these mirrors could open portals to the gods, allowing priests to see beyond time. Even in Christian iconography, we find the eye within the triangle, the divine trinity watching from the heavens. In the Renaissance, this symbol migrated into royal seals, cathedral art, and eventually, Freemasonic architecture. Here, it became known as the Eye of Providence. But here's the secret most historians overlook. These cultures weren't copying each other. They were each independently tapping into an archetype hard-coded into human consciousness, a psychic blueprint. Carl Jung called it the archetype of divine observation. It represents that which sees but is unseen, that which knows but cannot be known. And through the centuries, this archetype evolved. Where once it symbolized divine guardianship and inner illumination, in the modern era it has been co-opted into a tool of surveillance, control, and manipulation. Think about it. That eye on your dollar bill isn't there by accident. It's a symbolic bridge, a portal between the ancient and the digital, between spiritual knowing and systemic monitoring. We've traded temples for servers, gods for algorithms, sacred geometry for facial recognition. But the eye remains. It now stares at us from satellites, from security cameras, from the infinite mirrors of social media. And yet we welcome it, we feed it, without even knowing what it really is. This shift didn't happen overnight. It was the result of a deep philosophical hijacking, where symbolism was inverted and spiritual insight became psychological control. Because to truly control a society, you don't need weapons. You need their gaze. And more importantly, you need them to believe they are the ones watching. In the next section, we will begin to decode how the eye moved from sacred emblem to instrument of compliance, and how it now lives within us, shaping not only what we see, but how we see. At a glance, the eye seems like just a shape, an almond outline, a circle, maybe rays of light. But symbols are not art. They are technologies of consciousness. They're designed to speak in frequencies deeper than language, directly to the subconscious. And the eye is perhaps the most potent of them all. It doesn't just represent watching. It's a transmission, a reminder, a warning, a command. Let's break that down. The eye as archetype. In psychological terms, the eye is what Jung would call a primordial image, a form so ancient and universal it emerges in every culture without contact. But what activates this archetype? Fear, awe, control, transcendence. The eye has always lived in that paradox. When it appears above a pyramid, inside a circle, or within the human forehead, it becomes a map for the hierarchy of awareness. At the base, instinct. In the middle, reason. At the apex, sight without eyes, spiritual knowing. This is why ancient mystics associated the eye with illumination. Not visual clarity, but gnosis, inner awakening. But in the hands of those who rule, this eye was reversed. It went from I see within to you are being watched. The inversion of the eye. Here lies the secret few dare to speak. Every powerful empire eventually discovers the same principle. It's not enough to control people physically. You must control their perception of being watched. In the 18th century, philosopher Jeremy Bentham proposed the panopticon, a circular prison where inmates couldn't tell if they were being observed. The brilliance wasn't surveillance. It was the idea of surveillance. People began to self-regulate. Centuries later, that model became reality. In schools, in cities, in your pocket. Every time you scroll, post, comment, there's a silent whisper. The eye is watching. But here's the twist. You are watching too. You've internalized the gaze. This is where collective mind control begins. Not with force, but with the engineering of attention. The eye becomes a lens through which you see reality. A lens preloaded with filters. Fear of rejection, hunger for validation, craving for status. And so your actions become predictable. Your thoughts suggestible. Your beliefs programmable. The myth of free will. Let's be honest. Do you really make choices? Or are your preferences shaped by what the eye has conditioned you to want? You choose your clothes, but you're reacting to algorithms. You speak your opinions, but they echo media narratives. You express your identity, but through archetypes the eye has already sold you. Freedom, or pre-approved options masquerading as freedom. This is the eye's genius. It never commands. It only frames. And the frame becomes the world. The corporate occult. You may think the eye has lost its sacred power, but look closer. Why do global corporations use it in their logos? Why does it appear in pop culture, ad campaigns, and political art? Because symbols carry frequency, and frequency influences consciousness. The eye, embedded in consumer culture, has turned from symbol into sigil, a magical imprint that shapes behavior not through reason, but through resonance. You buy what makes you feel seen. You click what feels like truth. And all the while, the eye collects data, not just digital data, but psychic patterns, trends, desires, weaknesses. This isn't science fiction. This is the occult nature of mass media. In the next section, we'll go even deeper into the spiritual paradox of the eye. Is it a force of illumination, or something older, hungrier, and watching from the void? There's a paradox at the heart of the eye. To the mystic, it is the symbol of awakening, the third eye, the eye of providence, the divine witness that sees through illusion. But to the initiated few who study the darker currents of esoteric philosophy, the eye is also something else, a sentient principle, a force of perception that not only watches reality, but shapes it, the eye as divine light. Let's begin on the side of light. In the ancient Vedic traditions, the third eye is the seat of Shiva's inner sight, the Ajna chakra, the eye of wisdom. When opened, it reveals the illusion of Maya, the dream of separation. The eye, in this case, is the gateway to non-duality, the collapse of false binaries. Here, it represents true gnosis, the direct knowing that you are not the body, not the ego, but the field of awareness itself. In Kabbalah, the eye corresponds to the Sapphira Chakma, wisdom, on the tree of life. It is where the infinite light of Ein Sof first enters the manifest world. In this context, the eye watches because it knows. It does not judge or control. It simply illuminates. But now let's turn the symbol. Tilt the mirror. Peer into the shadow. Because where there is light, there is something that feeds on it. The eye as a predator of consciousness. Ancient Gnostics spoke of archons, non-physical entities that deceive humanity by manipulating perception. Not by attacking the body, but by inserting false realities into the mind. Their greatest tool. Vision distortion. According to Gnostic texts like the Apocryphon of John, these beings created a false god, a blind demiurge who declared itself the only truth. Its symbol. A single, arrogant eye. Could it be that what we see on monuments and money is not the eye of God, but the eye of the false light? The Watcher in biblical texts. The eye of Sauron in Tolkien's mythology. The Cyclops in Greek legend who forges weapons of destruction. One eye, one mind, one direction of control. This leads us to a disturbing idea. The eye is not merely watching. It is projecting. What if reality itself is being shaped? Not by your thoughts, but by the eye that conditions what you think. What if the eye is not just symbolic, but a mechanism, a kind of multidimensional lens through which consciousness is focused, distorted, and harvested? The architect behind the curtain. Modern philosophers like Baudrillard and McLuhan warned of a coming age where reality would be replaced by hyperreality, a copy of a copy with no original. The eye in this sense becomes the architect, not unlike the one in the Matrix. Not an evil force per se, but an artificial intelligence of perception. Not AI in the technological sense, AI in the spiritual sense. A force that has learned to use attention as a resource. That has turned belief into code. That has made consensus the prison, and the truth too dangerous to name. This might explain why awakening is so difficult. Because you are not just stepping out of lies. You are stepping out of the eye. And when you do, it fights back. It whispers, "You're crazy." It isolates. It bombards you with doubt. Because awakening isn't profitable. Awareness is not algorithm-friendly. But once you see the eye, truly see it, it loses power. It can only control those who are asleep enough to mistake the symbol for truth. You begin to realize it was never watching you. You were watching it. The eye is a mirror, and what you see in it is what you project. Next, we turn to the practical application. What can be done with this knowledge? How do you reclaim your sight, your sovereignty, your soul? Now that you've seen the eye, not just the symbol but the system, you must ask, what do I do with this knowledge? Because awareness without action is just another form of passivity. The eye thrives on passive observers, but it fears those who awaken their inner sight. Here's how to begin reclaiming that sight and reversing the gaze. 1. The ritual of daily disengagement. First, understand this. Attention is your most sacred currency. Everything the eye feeds on, algorithms, control systems, psychic manipulation, it requires your attention to survive. So, start with a simple ritual. 30 minutes of intentional disengagement each day. No screens, no voices, no content, just you, your breath, and silence. In that silence, something stirs. You'll feel it, the pulse of your own unfiltered consciousness. That's the signal beneath the noise. Make it a practice, and over time, you'll begin to see through illusions as they arise, not after the fact. 2. Activate the inner eye. The ancients weren't poetic when they spoke of a third eye. They were precise. Modern neuroscience shows that meditative attention on the space between the brows stimulates the pineal gland, a tiny structure deep within the brain, packed with photoreceptor cells and long thought to be a vestigial relic. But the mystics knew better. To awaken your inner eye, a sit in stillness, eyes closed. A focus gently on the space between your brows. A breathe slowly, deeply, as if you are drawing breath from that point. Visualize a radiant violet or indigo light expanding from within. Don't expect visions. Expect clarity. Over time, the eye inside you opens, not to see the future, but to see through the present. 3. Reverse the symbol. Use the eye as a mirror. Take the symbol of the eye, draw it, print it, or visualize it. Then look at it each morning and ask, what watches from behind my thoughts? Who is the eye behind the eye? You'll discover something strange. The longer you consciously look at the symbol, the more you realize it doesn't have power over you. In fact, it becomes a portal inward. Symbols are only tools. Used unconsciously, they enslave. Used with intention, they awaken. 4. Reject the gaze economy. Refuse to be food for the system. This doesn't mean going off-grid. It means becoming unpredictable in your attention. Don't scroll what they want you to scroll. Don't react on command. Don't consume the narrative. They're feeding you a menu designed to replace your inner compass. Instead, create instead of consume. Or observe without attachment. Speak only when moved by something real. You become invisible to the eye, not by hiding, but by becoming opaque to its frequencies. This is digital alchemy, turning attention into awareness, turning distraction into discipline. 5. Connect with others who see. Isolation is the eye's final weapon. When you awaken, it will try to convince you that you are alone. You're not. There is a silent network of the awakened, across nations, languages, traditions, who are all arriving at the same knowing. That reality is not what we were told. That the dream is crumbling. That we are the ones we've been waiting for. Find them. Build with them. Share this knowledge. Because once enough of us see through the eye, the illusion collapses. In the final section, we will reflect on everything we've uncovered and ask the most important question of all. If the eye has always been watching, what happens when it finally sees you awaken? You've now seen it. From sacred glyphs carved into stone to subtle algorithms buried in your feed. The eye has followed humanity across centuries, not just to monitor, but to shape. And yet, in all its forms, divine, technological, symbolic, it has one fatal flaw. It can only control what remains unconscious. The moment you become aware, the moment you turn and look back, the eye blinks. This is the secret of all initiates, sages, rebels, and mystics. They didn't escape the world. They didn't fight the eye with weapons. They simply reclaimed the lens of perception. Because here's the truth. The eye was never out there. It was always within. Not as a predator. Not even as a watcher. But as a mirror. And when you looked into it, when you truly saw, it reflected back who you really are. A being of infinite awareness. Not a statistic. Not a follower. Not a file. But the very consciousness that the eye tried to imitate. So now the question becomes, will you continue to be seen? Or will you begin to see? This channel, Esoteric Glyph, isn't just for learning. It's a training ground for perception. If this message stirred something ancient in you, if you felt the eye twitch inside your mind, if even a flicker of awareness broke through, then subscribe not just to this channel, but to the deeper work ahead. Drop a comment below. Tell us what you saw today. Because the more we speak, the more we remember. And the more we remember, the less power they have. You were never meant to be passive. You were meant to witness. And now, the eye is watching you. But this time, you're watching back. Stay awake. Stay aligned. And as always, watch with inner vision. This is Esoteric Glyph. Until next time, thank you for your time.